It's the podcast. It's the podcast. It's the podcast. All right, I'm done. I'm done.
Bum, 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 da.
Dun, 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 dun.
If justice is blind, what's
All right,
the
guys. All
price for your eye?
right. So, greetings, fellow armchair Imagineers, Cape Crusaders, Gothamites, and so on and so forth. Tiki here.
And Bluedragonfive.
And Jacob Weil.
And Rohith Dhar.
And tonight we're doing a little news. It's funny because Dragon, you and I, we were planning on doing movie memoirs, and we were literally having a conversation last night about like, well, okay, we have to cut some of this news down. You know, some trailers came out that I just don't have too much to say
Yeah,
about.
we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens tomorrow if we have to add anything in.
Yeah,
But, like what's gonna happen? And well, it's so funny because we knew this was coming at some point in January, but then James Gunn was downplaying, and then this happened. So he waited literally to the last day to announce all the stuff.
Well, technically it is January still.
I know that's what I'm saying. Wait till but again, he got it all in there last minute under the wire.
The thing is, yesterday he actually, this is sort of behind the scenes on this part. And this was so for yesterday he had Warner Brothers had two meetings where they revealed the slate. One was in the morning with the trades, so like Deadline, Variety, The Hollywood Reporter. They got the full slate reveal, and then in either the afternoon, evening, they had a meeting for like the fan, blogs or just the niche nerd, people that do blogs or do stuff on YouTube, whatnot. A little funny thing that they mentioned, just as an aside, was that. The guy, I heard this news from Jeff Snyder. He runs a publication. And he mentioned to me how the trades were allowed to break at 9 a.m. Pacific time, and then for the fan signs and blogs, they were allowed to break at 9:05. Literally just a 5-minute delay. It's like, my God, Hollywood just has a hierarchy and just a clicky thing to it. But it's crazy that nothing got spoiled from yesterday all the way to today. There's no slate reveals. That's pretty good, information control.
Yeah, totally. So I'm just gonna go ahead and go round table. I'm gonna start because I don't honestly have that much to say, and I think out of the four of us, I might be kind of the Scrooge in the room. Generally speaking, for me, yeah, it's a lot of stuff. I'm not overly excited about any one thing in particular, and honestly, like you guys kind of know at this point, I myself have been kind of getting into a little bit of superhero fatigue just in general. So there's definitely stuff here that I am interested in for sure. There's definitely stuff here that does pique my interest. I just don't necessarily know. I'm basically at the point with both Marvel and DC where if something isn't striking my interest personally, I don't even think I'm going to engage with it. I'm just finding it harder and harder to keep up with everything. But, having said that, there's definitely some interesting nuggets here for us to munch on. So, all right, I'm going to throw it to Dragon. What do you think of this?
Yeah, so I gotta admit, I really like the presentation. It's like the one-on-one, just James Gunn kind of listing off what's happening. And I find, honestly, the most interesting thing for me, we'll get into when we talk about the news properly, is specifically once we get into the slate announced. The comic art that was chosen, I think, might be conveying some stuff under the surface. I think might be conveying some specifics. I mean, obviously, one case is a literal adaptation. So I mean, that does kind of tells yeah, we're pulling from this book. But aside from that, it in general feels like there's kind of like a tonal kind of feel for what we're going for on these. And I'm intrigued by the lineup. Honestly, looking at this, there's 1 to 2 tops, 2 things I'm a little worried about, but on the whole, I'm loving the slate. I'm liking it. It feels. Given I did not know about the theming. To me, the biggest shock of this whole thing was the whole gods and monsters kind of theming in the chapter 1, like that. Basically, the way in which we're were laying things that I find was the most interesting kind of tidbit of like, okay, I'm getting a feel for some of this is what I expected with James Gunn, because I think things like Booster Gold, which we'll get into, it feels very on brand for James Gunn. It feels, and obviously, stuff that's in conjunction with Peacemaker. So some of this is like kind of part of the course, but the other stuff is very much speculative. Like, I wonder what, it's unclear how much direct involvement James Gunn's going to have on all this, because presumably he's the Kevin Feige. Presumably he's overseeing all this and putting in capable hands as that kind of goes. And some of these things are very like Superman and Waller, very directly, hands in that story and what's going on there. So, and some of this is stuff that was kind of being talked up beforehand, like the Lantern thing, which again, but overall, I'm liking it. I think it's interesting. This isn't even technically the full like first slate. This is only like I'm going to estimate half, because they said this isn't everything. There's more to come. So yeah, this is interesting. I like the fact that Gunn has a plan, and he's kind of drawing the lines, which is what we desperately need in DC, just to say, okay, look, we actually do have a plan this time. And, some things are going to be loosey-goosey, but you're going to know that they're loosey-goosey. We're not just going to leave everyone guessing. We're going to let you know that's Elseworlds. That is not Elseworlds. There you go. That's all we needed. I think we accomplished some stuff here.
It's kind of like the Marvel versus Marvel Studios branding.
Yeah, there you go. Sure. And, we're definitely... we're definitely taking some risk here, but I don't know. I see a kind of a logic to it. Like Rohith said, I do see kind of a theming, and I'm looking forward to it. I'm excited to see what James Gunn has in store. At the very least, it can't be worse than what we've kind of already incurred at times in the DCEU. So sure.
All right, Jacob, what do you got?
I'm basically on the same boat as Dragon. Like, one thing I'm kind of interested is, like, I kind of like how they're leading more into the more fantastical side of the DCU. Because one of the things at DCEU was like it was mostly grounded for the most part. Sure, it had things like Superman and things like, and even Wonder Woman, but you can tell from just this slate alone they're leading more to the fantastical, wilder side of the DC universe. Like embracing the more comics, more comic universe of the whole DC universe, and I think then it's already a step in the right direction. It's like you're seeing things like, obviously, like Paradise Lost and the Lanterns. Hopefully a good Lantern story this time, and even the wilder side, like Creature Commandos. It's like you can tell that they're like definitely trying to strike a balance, and it's like, yeah, this is what we're it's basically this can be considered like their mission statement. Like, this is gonna separate them from what they did before. And I must say, I'm looking forward to it myself. Like a lot of these picks, and some of them I will admit, some of them I have not heard of. I've heard of a lot of them, but some of them I am not as familiar with as others. But I'd say some of this doesn't, in fact, intrigue me. So, it looks like James Gunn and Peter Safran have a plan. So, here's to that.
All right, Rohit, what are your thoughts?
I guess it's funny how in the order we go, because I feel like I'm really the most hyped out of us, because in terms of the chapter, the theming of gods and monsters, it's not just like the fact that, there's certain characters that could be classified as gods or godlike, or certain characters or teams or concepts that are monsters or monster-like. I think there's an interesting through line that in going through these slate of projects and then the other projects you might reveal, I think there's going to be more thematic about what makes one a god and what makes one a monster, and sort of the line and the blurriness of it. And maybe that's sort of the statement that James Gunn wanted to make, is that for a hero in being a god, it's like someone that's seeking to do good or render good works, and a monster, someone that seeks to cause harm or whatnot. And I think with these projects, it is a wide gamut and variety of genres, which I think is good, because it's not just like, isn't operating on the mentality of, let's just try to build out a world and kind of let people, dip their toes in and whatnot. He's just like, here, go into the ocean, and there's different islands with different flavors. And you have a Creature Commandos that might like embody a lot of the vibes of the those Hellboy movies. Amanda Waller show that can have like sort of an espionage, thriller feel. A Superman movie that embraces Superman being a beacon of hope. A Green Lantern show that's True Detective meets Space Cops. The Authority, which is be like the Avengers, but meet sort of real world politics and the implications of using power to not just save the world but change it. Game of Thrones style shows taking place in Themyscira among a society of women. A Batman movie that finally has Robin and Booster Gold, a character that's been loved and has such an interesting arc and journey of being a wannabe hero to being an actual hero and not being recognized for it. A coming of age, existential, story centered on a young girl with Supergirl, and just an horror movie that could have later implications to go into more existential psychedelic, fare with Swamp Thing. So there's what I feel confident, what I feel really excited about. This slate has something for anyone. And as such, if you don't like all the projects, there's at least one or two, or maybe half, or maybe three-fourths that you will definitely like to love.
Okay, cool. So we're gonna start by just kind of going over some of the confirmations for stuff that we already knew about. So, Dragon, you want to take us through that really quick?
Yeah, sure. Basically, at the top, James Gunn kind of reaffirmed some things that are the things that are coming out this year, as well as just kind of like kind of clear up some of the uncertainty. Like, for example, the where he's going to officially label the Batman, Joke, Todd Phillips Joker, and basically any other stuff is just Elseworlds officially. So it's not. They are trying to build a universe, but still they're not saying you can't do stuff that's outside the universe. Stuff like like so basically a lot of people, and this is kind of interesting when James Gunn was making this video, and you kind of tell it mainly in the upfront confirmations portion we're doing here, when he's talking about the stuff that was not under his purview, that he's kind of sidled with. He's a little uncomfortable. There's kind of a vibe there that he's like, that he might be over complimentary towards certain things, but we don't know. He might actually like them, but you get a sense that there's like, okay, we're, yeah. So this is definitely Elseworlds, which is cool, and then other stuff is like, hey, I really like that Flash movie. It's like it's unclear. We don't know though. Anyway, so well, I mean, Elseworlds being said is kind of a big deal. Like we're finally officially saying that as far as the movies go, which is we've been basically in the fandom we've been saying that. So he's like saying that we're actually going to label it Elseworlds, so there's no confusion. The confirmed movies that are coming out, just the kind of little earmark few things here. So Shazam: Fury of the Gods, basically, it seems like James Gunn kind of lucked into that one because Shazam was always kind of on the outskirts of the DCEU continuity anyway, and it's like in the sandbox of the old guard, but kind of disconnected from it. So again, Shazam is kind of like what Peacemaker did to an extent, where again it's kind of we're using a lot of the same things, like we're in kind of in that universe, and clearly we have like the Snyder the DCEU kind of Justice League at play there, but So again, point being, he said, Shazam's still coming out, and then he said The Flash, which it seems like he's doing some PR damage control there, vouching for it.
They are really trying to hype up this movie, and honestly, that makes me feel like even more uncomfortable about the whole thing.
Well, the important thing that was said, I think the main reason James Gunn brought it up here, I'm not saying he had any other option than to bring it up. Let's just say, I think the big takeaway from this Flash talk was they're definitely confirming that, we're doing some retconning at the end of Flash, much like Flashpoint kind of does. So whether or not that movie's end up going to be remotely anything like Flashpoint, which I highly doubt, end of the day, that's going to facilitate kind of our new kind of continuity thing that we're building here, the kind of the new James Gunn regime, I guess.
I think he mentioned the movie, but he didn't mention anyone else involved in the movie except Andy
Muschietti.
Still in the movie? Let's change the subject.
Like he basically only mentioned Andy Muschietti.
Yeah. All right, so then Blue Beetle, the big one, Blue Beetle's like, that one's more of like, oh god, he said the title, so it's actually coming out. Blue Beetle's okay.
Thank God.
It's okay. He's okay. But so it avoided the fate of Batgirl, thank goodness.
Yeah, and even And they're still saying that Batgirl is basically unreleasable.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. I have a theory about Batgirl. We'll get there later. Okay, so then lastly, Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom. Now, this one's interesting. Now, I don't know all the ins and outs of this, but I get the impression I get, and it might be wrong, is that him being enthusiastic about Jason Momoa's Aquaman here does make it sound like Momoa Aquaman will be sticking around, and my theory is that we're gonna give the Justice League the main Justice League members a lot of, with the exception of the ones that are being reintroduced, like what we're doing with Batman, Superman, and such. Like Wonder Woman, Aquaman, we're probably, and I would hope Flash as well at this point. They're probably going to be really distant. Like they won't come in until like chapter 2 with this. I'd imagine. Like we're going to figure out what we're going to. What you got, buddy?
Well, I mean, to be fair, they could show up in chapter 1 and just be in the second part of that. They probably weren't in the initial sleep to reveal, but they probably will be,
Well, regardless, they are giving it even some relative distance. But yes, you're right. It could be as early. Technically, it could be as early as like the part 2 of all these chapter 1 announcements. So the point being, we're giving some distance because I think they're still figuring out what exactly they want to do there. Because some people are saying Momoa is out. I think Momoa says, "No, I'm very much in, man. I love this character. I'm not going anywhere. I'll chain myself to this boulder, man."
And Zachary Levi mentioned that things are all still good with him in DC. So.
Yeah, and there's some talk there, but let's not get into that. But yes, it seems like that people definitely want to stick by their rules, whether they're going to be allowed to or not. I don't know. We'll see what happens. And that's all that's been confirmed.
All right.
Okay.
Oh wait, no. One other thing. The Batman. Also, we got a release date for it. Well, we got a release month. It's coming out. The Batman Part 2, I think, is what they're tentatively calling it right now. Is coming out October 2025.
Yes.
All right, now we're good.
All right, so let's just get into the main announcements. Of course, there's 10 of them up front, so going to go in the order they were announced. Let's start with Creature Commandos.
Okay, so Creature Commandos is going to be an animated series that, according to James Gunn, what he's really working on here, he's emphasized with all of these, is that they are interconnected. So the animated stuff will, at some point, ideally, go into live action and or video games and so on. So all these things can interchange between the 3 mediums, between games, animation, and film.
I just take the title and it just sounds so much like something that would have come out in the 80s, like Transformers era.
Tiki, I don't know if we did this on Hijinks or not, but I want you to remind me. Did I show you the Sergeant Rock DC Showcase short that had the Creature Commandos in it?
Doesn't ring a bell. Doesn't sound familiar.
And, considering this is James Gunn we're talking about, the 80s vibe is probably intentional.
Yeah.
I mean, what I was seeing on Creature Commandos, it's insane that according to James Gunn, he's written all the episodes. I think it's like 7 or 8, and it's like, God, do you not sleep, James? God damn.
Now, from what I understand, this is an official image from the show. This is like what the characters at least roughly look like that we have kind of in the image that was provided for us here. Now, if you'll notice, it seems like we're mixing, because there have been like a number of lineups on this team over the years. Like for me, see, I didn't know much about the Creature Command except for that Sergeant Rock short that they put out from the DC original animated movies, which is really good, and I loved it. Carl Urban played Sergeant Rock and did a great job. And he basically, the idea is like, you have a military guy, and over the years he's kind of sidled with kind of this kind of squad of commandos that are basically nods to the Universal horror monsters. That's essentially the premise.
Yeah,
which is really cool. And the lineup that we have here, it seems like they went with the majority of it is like the most modern interpretation of the team, like the Agents of Shade version of the team, which is why you have both Frankenstein and the Bride of Frankenstein on the team, and they look awesome. Frankenstein's the best part of this whole team, as you can probably guess. And beyond that, you have I'm really not overly familiar with them because again, most I have was that short. But it seems like we're pulling a couple bad guys from the DC universe as well here. One of which we have seen before. But you have Dr. Phosphorus there, the guy who looks like Blight, Tiki.
Mm-hmm.
And you have I'm convinced because there's a werewolf on the team usually, but I'm pretty sure that guy with the bug eyes that's Weasel from the Suicide Squad who was alive at the end of that movie. I'm pretty sure, and that's about again what explains James Gunn's involvement with his brother's character.
My issue here is that I feel like both this and the Authority are basically kind of coming at it from a perspective of like, hey, the Suicide Squad is fun. Everybody loves the boys. More of that, please.
I would argue this one's more in response to Marvel, like starting to kind of having a monopoly on horror, and this is like their answer to that. Like, we literally have a team with it's going to be this ultimately. Marvel's got vampires and werewolves. We got Frankenstein.
That's fair. That's fair.
And
in all fairness, like the Creature Commandos, like they feel more in line with like Hellboy and the PRD, like kind of like monsters working for the government, fighting other monsters, all that stuff.
I mean, that is the better comparison.
I'm just saying the presence of literally characters who were in the Suicide Squad.
And to be fair, both of these works predate the boys by quite a few years.
Well, the Authority's like another thing we'll get.
Well, yeah, I know the comic predated the boys, but that doesn't have any relevance.
The idea, like to be fair, the Dirty Dozen thing's always as a concept, which is even what the Suicide Squad gets from. The point being, the idea of like the ragtag bad guy thing has been around for a while.
And a neat aspect is like he said the goal is to maintain the actors even from going from voice acting to even to the live action performances.
Yeah,
I think that's a good goal.
Now, the only one I think I've been able to, again, not really knowing the source material all that well from the comics on this, from what I understand, I think I can piece together who each of these guys are, with the exception of the guy with the beard. Him, I don't know if he's supposed to be like. There's this guy on the team called Father Time. He's either going to be Sergeant Rock, Father Time, or Ray Palmer, but he could be another character entirely for all I know. So that's the only one.
I think I've heard that like he may be Rick Flex Sr.
That's cool. I like that. That's the idea.
Hey, yeah. Who's the blue lady?
That blue lady, that's interesting. She's kind of like a takeoff on the creature from the Black Lagoon. She's Dr. Nina Mazursky, basically kind of like a Gill woman.
And what about the
robot-looking guy, right?
It's not you mean the guy next to the guy next to her?
Yeah, the guy next to her. Yeah.
Phosphorus.
Yeah, Dr. Phosphorus.
Yeah, Dr. Phosphorus is the burning skeleton guy.
And what about the army zombie?
Yeah, that's saying the army zombie. He's actually a robot.
Huh.
He is that guy is Matthew Shreve. He's basically the idea. He was a POW and he was going to rescue and put on the team. Anyway, so that's literally as much as I know about the Creature Commandos. We're just gonna move on.
There's
from there,
a weird echo on your guys' part.
Let's see. Yep. Okay, did we get it?
Yep, it's gone.
Yeah, you're good.
All right, we're good. Anyway, yeah, I mean, so unless you guys have anything else on the Commandos, I mean, this I think it's their answer to kind of like horror, but with as Rohit's saying, kind of with a BPRD kind of slant, which could be a lot of fun and feels irreverent and kind of.
I'm gonna have a lot. I'm a lot more skeptical about the Authority, so we'll get there when we get there.
Yeah, this one honestly seems up your alley, though. The Creature
Commandos. It does with the Frankenstein of it all. Yeah.
For Creature Commandos, considering the plethora of like monsters and magical based entities in the DC universe, I feel like Creature Commandos could set up things like Shadow Pact or Justice League Dark. Also, like the Creature Commandos in like at least the 40s version, they fought against the Nazis, and I mean, unless they're fighting against neo-Nazis, I can imagine like a DC villain like Per Decaton. He was like not a Nazi, he's like a Nazi adjacent or like fascist supervillain that they could use. Maybe like he comes from the past and comes into like present day and goes to the Spirit Destiny, some like Raiders of the Lost Ark kind of crap, and they come into play.
Right. Okay, so let's transition to Waller.
Okay.
So Waller's gonna be
I like the character. I'm not quite sure how this is going to work as a full-blown show. I'm open to it.
Well, it's a continuation of where Peacemaker left off with her, because remember, the Suicide Squad was exposed, and now kind of like the image is kind of implying here, she's in trouble, and she's going to have some opinions on that. Yeah, I imagine they said that the gang.
By all intents and purposes, it pretty much just sounds like Peacemaker season 2 to me.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds more like a Peacemaker spinoff. Ultimately, is what it really. That's
right,
what it is.
right.
So based on that, we know she's going to be turned to some of the characters from Peacemaker. So I imagine Economos is probably going to, be on our list there. But I primarily the interesting thing about this Waller show that I imagine you get most of the dramatic heft from is that her daughter turned on her. And I think that's going to be. I think we're getting into like the
Sure,
layers of
sure.
Amanda
That's
Waller.
definitely going to be the point of contention for the show, I would think.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think she's gonna have some issues with Adebayo, and I think we're gonna get into like why Amanda Waller is the monster that she is, hence the theme.
Yeah, what's interesting about that comic image, I think it's from like an arc, like where, called the Janus Directive, where there was like an interagency squabble, between Checkmate and some other group. And considering Argus exists, it could be like, one secret spy agency against like another secret spy agency with Checkmate into the picture. And maybe that could, maybe throughout like the first slate and then and throughout the first chapter and other chapters, there's going to be like the existence of other government agencies like Shade, so Frankenstein could go there, and like Checkmate could have its own TV show with like other DC characters that pop up on other projects being like agents or whatever.
Now, two things. Okay, one, with Amanda Waller, again, I think it does very much play James Gunn's strength, and of course, being spin-off Peacemaker, that kind of goes hand in hand here. But it feels like, again, James Gunn's all about finding humanity within the monster, or kind of vice versa. He's all about kind of finding the layers to, like, people have really dark streaks.
Who is the monster and who is the man?
Yes, Tiki, thank you.
To be real though, James Gunn doing Hunchback would be quite an interesting movie.
That would be, actually.
It would be, yes. Not my first choice for a Hunchback movie.
You know
who interesting.
You know who the James Gunn the Quasimodo should be?
Oh God, who?
Kevin Bacon.
Oh Jesus!
Well, think about it. We had another Animal House actor as Quasimodo, so why?
I would kind of like to see Will Poulter do it.
Oh, Will Poulter would.
That's actually a really good idea.
Yeah.
Who would be Frollo?
Okay, maybe that could be Kevin Bacon.
Honestly, freaking give that to
Rooker.
No. Give it to the guy, the police guy in Peacemaker. You know what I'm talking about? That's like sociopathic.
Yeah.
Yeah, have him be Frollo.
All right.
Yeah.
I just really want to see Patrick Page in a Hunchback movie as Frollo. He owned that role so well.
Yeah, he actually would be really good as Frollo.
But then again, I want to see Patrick Page in pretty much any role of that type. So
Yeah. Anyway, yeah. Let's see. Okay, so one thing. Yeah, this plays the Gunn's strength, like what you can do with Amanda Waller, and just kind of finding like what's likable about this character, despite all the terrible stuff that she does. Now, outside of the whole, well, she's a patriot, depending on who you ask, but like no, there's a lot more. There's something really dark in that lady. Like she's really.
This is the second show starring a mortally ambiguous black spy set in a superhero interconnected universe.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. So the other thing, Batman. So famously, Batman has an encounter with Amanda Waller. That's very much in. I wonder. Do you think there's any
mine are bigger?
Mine are bigger than yours.
Do you think there's any chance that Batman is going to make an appearance like this new James Gunn Batman that we're going to talk about later? Right? Because it's the small screen. We're not going to do that.
No, I would imagine Amanda Waller showing up maybe in. God, it'd be crazy if she showed up in like the post-credit scene Superman, and then like reveals that she knows his identity as Clark Kent. And then maybe the second movie could have her be involved as like trying to manipulate Superman to work for the government.
I mean, maybe, but then again, we have the whole thing where Amanda Waller's like talking with Superman as the Henry Cavill Superman, but that's going to be a whole, I don't know.
That's fair.
Might be double dipping at that point. All right, speaking of Superman, though.
Superman
Legacy.
So we have a release date on this. That's the main thing. We have two things confirmed here. We have July 11th, 2025, and while there's no casting on Superman revealed yet, which James Gunn did warn everyone about, we do know he is writing this.
Mm-hmm. This seems to be like the main movie that he's involved in.
Oh, for sure, yeah. They've been trying to get him to do Superman. When they first brought him to the DC, the way James Gunn tells it, like they really wanted him to do Superman, but James Gunn's philosophy at that point was like, no, Superman is absolutely always going to get a movie no matter what. But I mean, the Suicide Squad aren't necessarily going to like the Polka Dot Man is not going to show up in film unless I do that movie. You know, so that was his logic of like, I got to go for I got to represent the oddballs of these seniors who are never going to get movies on their own. Versus Superman is like always going to get something.
And now he's in a position to do both.
Yeah, exactly. So now we get the best of both worlds there. Whether he'll direct it or not, we don't know yet. But yeah,
I really find interesting the image that was chosen to represent like the Superman Legacy film was like Grant Morrison and Frank Quitely's All-Star Superman.
So All-Star Superman is one of the great Superman stories. We should
mention. No, but it's very telling how big of a fan he is of Grant Morrison. And
there's like 3 Grant Morrison minimum. There's like 3 Grant Morrison picks and influences on these on the slate.
Those being.
Well, I'm saying like we have basically the Batman Authority and
Grant Morrison was on the Authority.
Are you sure? I thought he took on one of the runs of the Authority.
I know it was like Brian. I know it was like Warren Ellis.
Yeah, Warren Ellis and Brian Hitch,
and Mark Miller.
Okay, so also he had Swamp Thing. They said there's your third, but
Grant Morrison didn't do Swamp Thing.
He did a run of Swamp Thing.
I know he did a run of Doom Patrol, but I don't remember he's done.
I mean, I've even heard that Grant Morrison did Swamp Thing. Like, I've heard that. I don't know.
I'm pretty sure he did at least. I'm pretty sure he did like one of the runs on Swamp Thing. But point being, there's a lot of Grant Morrison between Batman and Superman at least on this list.
Yeah.
Anywho, point being, yes, there's a lot of the fact is because Grant Morrison, personally for me, and this gets me real excited because I love I much prefer Grant Morrison's Superman than I do his Batman. So I do love that we are pulling from that for Superman, and the name Legacy does support that this is perhaps going to be, I think, what's much needed with Superman after a while, a Superman appreciation film of some sort, something that's going to be, we're kind of appreciating what Superman stands for, and now whether this is like a super, because it's a young a part of me wants to say this is going to be a seasoned Superman, but he's going to be a younger Superman, so I don't know how much of this is going to be kind of like a green Superman versus Superman who's been around, but he just happens to look young. I'm not sure.
I could see where.
So it's basically going to be like the return to like the Christopher Reeve version of Superman almost. As in like one that's like, like not like all edgy or anything like that, not overly dramatic or dark.
Sure.
I could see this be like the Matt Reeves Batman in the sense that, he's been Superman, not like he's been longer than a year, but maybe not close to 5 years, maybe half of 5 years, like 3.5, maybe 3.
The vibe I'm getting, no matter what they do, whether he be like a Superman in the middle of his thing or just kind of in the beginnings, like as you said, like the Matt Reeves, Batman, kind of the year 2 version. I'm getting the sense this Superman kind of where the Batman ends to a degree, where it's a hero contending with becoming a symbol. So I think that might be our introductory point, hence the Legacy title. I think it's going to be Superman contending with what he means as a symbol and how he feels about that, but hopefully less angsty than we've done.
What was interesting in the quote that was said about James just said about this movie was that, it's like about him balancing his Kryptonian heritage with his humanity. And it's like, okay, with Legacy, is Brainiac going to be the villain? Because I can imagine like Brainiac, be introduced in the way that he was introduced in DCAU as part of Krypton.
Yeah.
Like Krypton's legacy.
I just want somebody besides Luthor, man. Just some other A-tier Superman villain besides Luthor or Zod, please.
I think Rohit's absolutely on to what this movie's going to be about. I think in terms of it might be Superman kind of, whether it be like him coming him dealing with becoming a symbol, but I think mainly you're right, Rohit. It's got to be Legacy is a big wide opening for exploring, either learning about his Kryptonian heritage or kind of coming in kind of with Brainiac and kind of like getting in. Yeah.
Imagine if there's the Bottle City of Kandor and like Superman like frees it or whatnot, and then maybe that sets up like a new Krypton story down the line.
That's the thing. I don't know how I feel about them doing new Krypton, but if we do it by proxy of Brainiac, I guess that is a good way to do that story.
Some people are hoping they see Bizarro down the line.
The theory, I think the theory is that Henry
Bizarro
Cavill's-
is like one of my like go-to Superman villains. I'd love to see, honestly.
I love Bizarro, and I would love him to come into phrase. I don't know if that's with a movie called Legacy. I don't know if Bizarro necessarily, off the top of my head, fits into that title. But
I don't think he does either. But I would like to see him down the line.
Oh, for sure. And would you want Henry? There's some rumors that Henry Cavill might come back to play Bizarro. Would you want?
Okay, that would be fucking wild, dude. I'd love that.
And also, the one villain I kind of want to see in this, eventually not like up front, but once they've got things settled, Mr. Mixius Spitlick.
That can be possible with James Gunn.
Yeah, with James Gunn, that is absolutely possible.
I would also love.
I mean, he did reference Batmite, I think.
Let's get Patton Oswalt to play him. Yeah.
I would love if Toyman showed up and he's based on the DCAU version, because my God, that would be like a creepy like horror movie for Superman to be involved with.
True. He can't be the main villain though. He can be in there, but he can't be the main villain.
I don't know. I think with the DCA, he was creepy. That doll like design is like can be very like effective.
Yeah, but Superman can beat him and like
you're going. It's like it's not. You can't go for a villain just for a physical match. It has to be like a battle of wits and just like the philosophy.
Well, I'm not saying necessarily physically he can beat him. I just mean Superman again is only so he saves the hostages and then the movie's over in one act.
I think you can make by that logic, like any villain that just sets up traps and like it puts people in danger, you can do more with.
Toyman's more sadistic than he is smart. I don't know. I mean the DCAU version particularly, but no.
What we need to see is Crazy Quilt.
Well, that's a Batman villain, but yes, we do need to see Crazy Quilt.
All right. I know, but
Condiment King.
Yes.
So tired of it, but look, it'd be really funny. Matt Reeves. Did you hear the joke Matt Reeves made about Condiment King?
No.
What?
Well, I forget it was Robert Pattinson or Matt Reeves. I think Matt Reeves is in there. One of the two of them said, I really want to see Condiment King show up. Or essentially, like, someone asked him, will Condiment King show up? And he basically gave kind of a non-committal answer. He's like, well, who knows?
Like, I would love to see Condiment King.
But seriously, Brainiac, though, would make the most sense as the bad guy. And plus, people for years have been wanting Brainiac to show up, and it would fit the whole Kryptonian angle of the story.
Who do you think they would get to play Brainiac?
Well, back in the day, they were thinking Walken. I don't think that's going to happen now.
I mean, any like British, like 50-plus-year-old actor could play Brainiac in their sleep. Not even British, but just any like 50, at least 50 years old, if not older, can play Brainiac in like a very sophisticated. I mean, you could go younger, but I feel you kind of need to have like a bit of an age difference.
Okay, the waters have been muddied so much with like the recastings and everything, but seriously, Jeremy Irons would be perfect.
He would be really good, actually.
Like, unless they get Corey Burton somehow.
He came back for Star Wars. Let's for Boba Fett. Let's bring him back here.
Super Billy has his here, and he has his own casting.
Yeah,
Ralph.
That's actually perfect. I want that. Let's do that. If we're not going to bring him back as Alfred, let's put him as Brainiac.
If not Ray Fiennes, like for me, I can think of a personal pick of mine, getting outside the box. Like you all seen Andor, right?
Yeah.
The actor who plays the inspector guy who's like obsessed.
Oh, yeah, he's actually he'd be good.
Yeah.
I gotta get one more for you. Richard E. Grant. He might actually be a good Brainiac.
Ben Kingsley would be pretty good.
Well, Ben Kingsley would be great for everything.
Well, I mean, just like or Patrick Stewart if you're wanting to go like.
And what about
if we couldn't get Patrick Stewart for Mr. Freeze, we're not gonna get him for Brainiac.
I just thought a few Lori, but
Bryan Cranston.
Okay, guys, y'all are literally just listing like every British actor over 50 in this point.
We were going to Cranston. Cranston could, in theory, play Brain. But point being,
Cranston could also play everyone. All right.
I know. I'm aware of this. I'm just anyway.
Koski says James Gunn. He wants James Gunn to hire Timothy Chalamet as the new Superman just to piss everybody off.
Yeah, that would just be ridiculous.
Would that really piss everybody off though? Because I mean, I don't know. I feel like Chalamet is kind of cementing himself at this point.
That's like when you cast Superman's son, who in the comics right now is actually the new Superman. Then he gets Chalamet. You don't get him for
all right, that's fair. That's fair.
However,
also Super Billy, I see your Batman comments. We're gonna wait till we get to Brave and the Bold to bring him up. But I see him. I see you. All right.
Okay, one last thing to mention, then we'll move on here. It's rumored because James Gunn posted a whole bunch of images that the majority of which I think have come true with some of this news, all these news being talked of. Lobo. Now, we did not have any official Lobo announcements. Of course, if they're pulling from American Alien, at least for part of this, they could get Lobo very easily in a Superman movie. Otherwise, he could be in the next thing we're going to talk about, or in another thing that hasn't been announced. It's going to be a Lobo movie entirely, or a Lobo video game, quite possibly.
All right.
Anyway, yeah, let's move on. So let's talk about lanterns. Go on.
Yeah, this is one that he didn't even really talk that much about.
Yeah, so here's the thing. Lanterns was in development before James Gunn came around. So this is Lanterns was the question is if this thing was ever going to see the light of day with HBO Max going crazy like it did recently. So Lanterns was in development with, I believe, Abrams. I believe Abrams was the one who originally developed this. And they left. And basically, it has this. I think it has an amazing sell. It has a great sell. It's the idea of which has great potential for Green Lantern as a concept, which it desperately needs. It's like an HBO Max style, basically detectives in space, a true detective in space, more accurately. Which, of course,
I mean, the Green Lanterns are essentially the galaxy's police force.
That's one thing, doing space cops, but less just like procedural, more like.
I like that as a selling point. It's just like True Detective has such a distinct gritty vibe to it that I just don't necessarily know that you can replicate with the Green Lantern lore.
I mean, you do have two really compelling Green Lanterns as your leads. You got Hal Jordan, and you have, more interestingly, John Stewart.
I do like that the two of them are working together. That's interesting.
That's what I'm saying, man. There's your potential.
Does anyone? I just noticed this just now. It's like when you see the two images posted, like Hal Jordan has a Green Lantern ring, but look at what John Stewart has in the picture.
I don't know if that's an aesthetic choice from a cover they pulled or not. I don't know what that cover's from.
Blue Lantern Earth 1. So I'm wondering.
This is from the Earth 1 book?
Yes.
Oh, well, do you know what happens to John Stewart in that book?
I do not. I just know that from what I understood, the Green Lantern Earth 1, the first volume, it was a very it feels like they took. My understanding is that they took a very hard. The writer and the team for the first volume took a very hard sci-fi approach with Hal Jordan, the Green Lantern Corps, and I feel like Hal Jordan in that story, he's not like a test pilot. He's like an aeronaut, like an asteroid. He's like an engineer, like mining, like an asteroid belt or whatever.
Yeah, so Super Billy in the comments says, I don't care for the fact that it's going to be Earth-based. Now, I don't necessarily, when James Gunn said they're patrolling the Earth sector, I don't think that necessarily means they're going to be on Earth, at the very least for the entirety of the story. I think that means they're stationed, they're the Green Lanterns of Earth. And
He said it was terrestrial.
What?
He said it was terrestrial. So
that,
like not extraterrestrial. So it's going to probably be mostly Earth.
Really?
I wonder if
he didn't use it's going to take you out of the cosmos or space. It sounded like it's just going to be very grounded,
Oh.
And I think, which probably is helpful. It's probably how they're able to do this as a TV show.
Yeah, that does make sense because if they're in space, that'd be expensive.
Yeah.
And I wonder if they're going to. What would be interesting to draw from is if they're going to draw from the Green Lantern, Green Arrow book.
I mean, it'd be interesting, but by the same token, why wouldn't we just make Green Lantern, Green Arrow?
I mean, they could just draw elements from it, I guess.
Oh, as in they're traveling across the country to solve this mystery, or?
Well, you know what you could. Speaking of elements, though, Jacob, you could have kind of like some of the. Well, I'm not saying they necessarily have to do this, but if you are pulling from the iconic parts of that story, which you could, given they have John Stewart now in the fray, they could do some of the famous, kind of the racially charged scenes from that comic. The hard trailers thing, the whole you help the black skins, you help the purple skins, the orange skins, what with the black skins. I don't know. Not saying we go that verbatim, but something.
It's very interesting. I'm just like the title is Lanterns, not Green Lantern. Is the whole emotional spectrum already existing in the DCU?
So
maybe with the John Stewart having like a Yellow Lantern ring, it could be the case that there's like multiple different color lanterns that come to Earth for a reason.
There was a big plot detail they did kind of James Gunn foreshadowed here, where he said they're going to be uncovering a mystery that's going to have ramifications for the rest of the stories they're telling. I don't know if just in this chapter phase thing, or they said there's like a big mystery they're going to uncover. It's going to have ripple effects in this show.
Either they find out about the existence of the anti-life equation, or more specific Green Lantern orientation, they'll find out about like the Blackest Night prophecy.
Okay. I don't think we're going to do Darkseid or Apocalypse, at least in this story. I think they're going to distance themselves from it because of all the Snyder stuff. I don't think we're doing that.
But Blackest Night is probably a better or likely possibility.
I think so.
Does this kind of hint at like the Sinestro Corps, though?
It does. And I have an idea potentially, but John Stewart having a yellow ring does have a lot of interesting implications to it for him having kind of a fear-based dilemma of some sort, or like basically having like perhaps fear channeled as willpower to an extent, where he's getting a lot of strength from it. I've never considered giving John Stewart a Yellow Lantern ring. I don't know if that's necessarily what's going on here or not, because I haven't read that story, but I don't know. It's an interesting concept, and I'm sure it's going to be met with a lot of criticism if they're saying, wait a minute, why did you give him a yellow ring? What is wrong with you? So I don't know.
I mean, in the main canon, like there was one story arc where Ulf, like Hal, John, Kyle, and Guy took on like a ring of a different colored like core. Like Hal got the yellow ring, John got like the indigo lantern. Kyle was blue lantern ring, and then Guy was a red lantern ring.
Interesting. Okay.
Honestly, though, I would love to see James Gunn's take on Guy Gardner.
That would be a lot of fun. Okay, let's see. Super Billy says he says it might go for something akin to Lethal Weapon with like the dynamic between the two characters. And I could see that. I'd be down for that. It'd be a lot of fun. Okay, let's transition to the Authority.
All right, I just y'all might have different feelings about this one, but this is by far to me it's the least interesting thing on this list for me.
So, yeah, go on.
I just, to me, it's very much the thing that is just, like with the monster thing, with the creature commandos, I like, at least like you guys said, that has more of like a Hellboy vibe. This to me very much feels like DC trying to do The Boys, and it's, I don't know.
I'm gonna have to wholeheartedly disagree with you, Tiki, because
I'm not a comics fan, Rohit, so that's totally fine. Like, I don't know anything about these characters.
Well, because the thing is the Authority, they are more akin, I think, a comparison that you would understand is like they're more akin to the Justice Lords.
Mm-hmm.
So
I don't even know who those are.
Yeah, yes, you do, Tiki. The Justice Lords from A Better World, from Justice League animated series.
The alternate universe where Superman kills Lex Luthor and they have all the costume changes.
Okay, right. Look, guys, I just like, at the end of the day, this is like kind of like my superhero fatigue kind of coming into play, where I just feel like we've already got so many characters going on, so many different teams. It's hard to keep track of them, and now we're introducing a whole new team. I don't know.
So here's the thing with the Authority. So let me be clear. I know,
like, we just introduced a whole new team in Black Adam, which I still haven't seen, but I'm just saying it seems like there's a lot of these kind of like teams going around, and Marvel's doing one too, and I don't know.
Though in all honesty, it's not really that hard to keep track of everything.
Well, speak for yourself, Jacob. It's I'm having trouble with it, honestly.
All right.
I'm sorry.
So as far as the Authority goes, I gotta admit, initially I was excited just for the fact that, man, the Authority, there's a pull I never really expected to hear. Upon further reflection, I'm a little more worried for it than I initially was in terms of how it fits into everything, because the Authority, from the little I know about the Authority, I know about it mainly because of what Rohit just said with the Justice Lords comparison, because when they're doing the Justice Lords in Just League the Animated Series, the Authority was the main point of comparison, the inspiration behind their approach there. It's basically, the easiest way to look at it, it's the Justice League with an ends justifies the means philosophy. That's all you really need to know. Now, interestingly, the Authority, if I understand it right, they predated the Boys comic, and basically, now I'm not talking about the Boys show here, but basically, the Authority was the smart version of the Boys.
Well, no, because the thing is, the
I don't.
Authority-
Here's the thing for me. I don't care what does or does not predate the comics.
Well, yeah.
What I know is that the Boys is super popular, and this is them trying to do the Boys.
Well, that's why
They're
I'm saying
trend chasing,
and
and that's what I'm not
they're-
stoked
they-
about.
They're not, because the thing is that for the Authority, they're like so before even preceding the Authority, there's like the Squadron Supreme. The whole premise of the Authority is that these are superpowered individuals that are tired of just upholding the status quo and saving the world, and they're observing political crises, genocides, all the mature adult stuff that superheroes don't typically deal with and solve. They say, why don't we, instead of saving the world, we change it and try to make the world a better place, whether people like it or not. And I feel like that's an interesting angle, because there is a certain critique that some people have of certain superhero stories where it's like, oh, the supervillain makes a lot of sense, and now they're gonna try to undermine the supervillain by having them kill people, and the superheroes are just seen as defenders of the status quo or upholders of the status quo. That's not a critique I necessarily agree with 100%, but that critique is there, and I feel like James Gunn is probably wanting to tackle that notion about, all right, what does it mean for a superhero or a group of superheroes to actually change the status quo and force the world into utopia, whether everyone likes it or not?
I mean, I hear what you're saying. I feel like this is going to be a situation where, I don't know. I just don't necessarily think this is for me. It's great that you guys are stoked about it. I'm not trying to clip your wings on it. I just don't think it's for me personally. This is one of those situations where I'm kind of trying to, it's like a pick and choose what content you want to engage with kind of thing.
Yeah, here's my concern with the Authority. My concern is the Authority, again, is a very interesting premise. I'm interested in seeing, because I know I would be going to really blind, and it always has. I've heard a lot of praise about it, and again, just knowing kind of the things it has inspired in a good way, like the Justice Lords, and there was certainly a lot of story substance there. It sounds like it's a lot of good talent on it. The problem is, I feel because of where we are right now and kind of the over-examination of things that are, again, not exactly like the Authority, but are in kind of the ballpark of the Authority. It feels like, yeah, we've kind of tackled that story a couple times, and now it's starting to get a little passe. And not saying this is going to be passe, but I think it's just it feels like a little too late for this. But the main issue I have, less than that, is this. It's that it feels like, I don't know where this is going to be an Elseworld story. And if it's an Elseworld story, I think that's great, and I think it's perfectly welcome and everything. We can just do this as an offshoot. But if we're saying this is happening, because this used to be a Wildstorm idea, then got lumped into DC, if I understand it right.
Yes.
And it feels like this is going to be really hard to. What?
I thought it was Vertigo.
I'm pretty sure it was Wildstorm, but
it was Wildstorm, which I think was with its own, which as was like a imprint like Vertigo.
Mhm.
And I think Wildstorm was his own comics company that then got incorporated into DC as its own imprint like Vertigo, and then eventually the Wildstorm character just got incorporated into the wider DC universe.
So that's my point, is that it feels like the Authority, because of that, always has kind of something in the DNA where it's inspired by the DC universe. It's gonna be kind of weird if we put them in the DC universe officially. So it feels weird that we announce it here versus James Gunn saying, I wish he said this is gonna be an Elseworld story or not.
No, I think what James Gunn's wanting to do, and it's kind of ingenious, at least for me, I think it's ingenious, is that the Authority are the deconstruction of the Justice League.
Yeah.
And so you kind of flip it to where the Justice League comes out of the Authority, and it's like, hey, the Authority has gone too far, and the Justice League is basically like a reconstruction of the traditional ideal superhero mold.
That's an ambitious pitch, but if anyone's going to attempt it, I could see it being Gunn. So we'll see what happens there.
Yeah.
Okay. That brings us to Paradise Lost.
Mm-hmm.
Ooh.
It's kind of funny that it takes, they've used this title in the Justice League animated series, so it's kind of funny. We're going to call it Paradise Lost.
I mean, it's a classic. It's a classic reference,
Tiki, this is right up your alley. It's paradise, but it's also lost, and it's on an island.
Better to reign in hell than serve in heaven.
Yeah. So yeah, this. Yeah, go on.
I'm not sure how to feel about this. I like the Themyscira stuff in Wonder Woman well enough. I just don't know if it's going to hold my interest for a whole show. I mean, taking the Game of Thrones vibe, that makes sense. But the thing is, I'm not a Game of Thrones fan, so that isn't exactly like a big sell for me. So I just don't know about this one.
It's kind of funny how our image worked out on this, because I just now realize that the two I'm a little shaky on are the ones in the middle. So here's the thing. So Paradise Lost, more so than the Authority. Authority, again, I'm just unsure how it's going to fit in the framework, but again, Rohith has made a point of where maybe it's going to work out that way. But Paradise Lost, I'm legitimately concerned about for the following reasons. That yes, it's got we're having to sell it's kind of a Game of Thrones approach, but but with the Themyscira, and it feels like it's James Gunn. He's like, hey, let's explore. It's sorry. Let me start over here. Okay, so this feels like James Gunn is doing what we kind of always wanted to see in a DC universe on film. It's like, we want to get to the point in the status quo of these movies coming out where, like, hey, we can do an offshoot. We can explore the terra firma of this vast universe. And, like, we can explore Themyscira, Wonder Woman comes from, and the history that place has. And we're kind of there, and we had never thought we'd get to that place. And now, with kind of the overload of superhero stuff, we're kind of there now. Mm-hmm. And it's kind of odd because now we have okay, so it's Game of Thrones approach, but we have a couple things that we're lacking here. Like there's no Wonder Woman in the show. So there's it now has a bit of a Gotham component too, where it's the pre-Wonder Woman years when there's no Wonder Woman at all. And then you have
the Krypton Krypton.
That's the better comparison, actually. It is Krypton. It's pretty much Krypton.
I think the good opportunity for Krypton, for the Paradise Lost, is that with the whole Game of Thrones thing, I think there is something, at least for me, what I get out of it is that, okay, for Themyscira, that's considered Paradise Island, or like a utopia for women away from the ills and like darkness of man's world. Yeah. And maybe the point of the show is that, like, what does it actually mean to maintain a utopia, and whether that's actually possible, or you maintain a sort of facade and like the political intrigue at Game of Thrones politics to try to maintain a utopia or change it to something different.
It feels like to me the only story you get in the miniseries, almost. I'm not saying I forget if they said it was a miniseries or not, but let's just say, for argument's sake, it's a 1-season deal. Themyscira. Let's just say. I think the main story you tell, with Paradise Lost, is that it's the origin of Paradise Island. It's like how we get in the first place, which is all the strife they endure, and at the end they're rewarded with Paradise Island. And telling that story, it's. I think there's the risk, and I think the biggest risk the show has as a whole. And I'm not saying it's a fair thing that they're going to go up against, but I think, unfortunately, now I think our modern audiences, they have trouble with. I'm not saying it's everybody, but a lot of the female-focused stuff does get a lot of criticism, whether warranted or unwarranted, and it's.
I wonder how deeply they're going to delve into actual Greek mythology for this.
I mean, that's an interesting question too. But then again, why? I think the other thing is, like, how much are we going to care about without Wonder Woman being there in the Greek mythology?
Because it might be sort of what happens at the end of the show sets up like the main status quo that Wonder Woman has to grapple with, and like whenever she shows up in her own movie in the DCU. And it probably could be the thing that for the Themyscira and the DCU, it may be less like just Greco-Roman society on an island, and more like how it is in the Golden Age and some parts of the Silver Age, where it's like almost like a sci-fi esque utopia, kind of like Wakanda, but for women.
Yeah. I guess part of me is afraid it's going to be, men ruin this utopia. Men are bad. The show, I think, is like the worst headline that could come out of the show.
Probably the show actually doesn't do that, and shows that even when excluded from men, there's still angst and hatred and just tensions, and probably that's the whole Game of Thrones point.
Dragon, you know what movie that I recently saw that I totally thought was going to be like that? Like the whole, burn men to the ground, all men bad.
Was it The Woman King?
No, women talking.
Yeah. Okay. Oh yeah, I heard of that film.
Okay.
Yeah, it's really good. It's really good.
Oh, I think it could be I think like honestly them like Paradise could be like the Women King meets like not women but I'm just saying like the show could show with the whole Game of Thrones thing. I think the points that James Gunn's want to convey or the creatives for that show is going to be like even away from man's world you can't take away the ills that from the women, and that's the whole Game of Thrones political intrigue.
I'm pulling for. I see this show out of everything is gonna have the most uphill battle, but I'm fingers crossed, man. We'll see what happens.
All right.
Right. Yeah, that brings us to the Brave and the Bold.
It's the Batman. It's the Batman.
And Son. So, yes.
Batman and Son.
Batman and Son.
All right, so the big takeaway here is we're building
my bat son.
My bat son. My bat son. Okay.
Okay, sorry for bringing that.
Anyway, so we're officially building the Bat family in the DC universe. Now I don't know if that means we're building or it's already existing. Hence the reason we're getting to the fourth Robin. It's not Pattinson Batman. We know that for sure. It's seemingly adapting the Grant Morrison, Damian Wayne stuff. Now the question is, you'll notice, folks, we went of all the images here. This is like the one image that is not from the presentation. This is the Frank Quitely, Bruce Wayne Batman and Damian Wayne. Now in the presentation, you had the Dick Grayson Batman and Damian Wayne. Now, I have to just imagine because that basically he's very synonymous with Grant Morrison. That's why they went with that image without probably the marketing department not thinking that it was Bruce Wayne, because they made a very big point saying Batman's son. So I have to assume it's going to be Bruce Wayne dealing with his son, and that's pretty much what James Gunn said. Like it's Batman trying to curb his son's murderous tendency. So I have to assume it's going to be Bruce and Damian, and not Dick Grayson and Damian.
We'll have the opening few minutes of. Cat's Cradle or the song, the father and son song from Guardians 2.
Yeah.
No, actually, but I think that's actually kind of an interesting one. I love that we get to see Robin in the movie after freaking almost 30 years, nearly 30 years. And what's interesting in the pairing of, because the more popular pairing for Damian is like Damian and Dick. But I think but I can understand James Gunn's mentality in wanting Bruce to be, because Bruce is Batman for general audiences, and it's an interesting dynamic for general audiences to see Bruce not only as Batman but also as a dad, and especially the dad to basically a hit girl / number 5 from Umbrella Academy type kid.
I think the most interesting thing about this to me is that with the title like The Brave and the Bold, the impression I get, and a lot of people have been speculating this is just like what the heck James Gunn's going to do with Batman, under his supervision or whatnot. Like, what's he going to do? It's different. Like, what could we get away with? And especially with Grant Morrison in the fray here, with Grant Morrison influence in the fray here, I get the sense that we're going to do a Silver Age Batman, potentially a blue-caped Batman, potentially. And we're going to have that Silver Age Batman who's been there, done it all, seen it all, instill values in his assassin son, who is going to be the polar opposite of him in terms of how far he's come along to basically Damian Wayne, who's instinct is to kill people. And this will be kind of like a fun way of saying, no, folks, we are the furthest thing from the Snyder Batman who's just kind of killing indiscriminately. We're not that guy. No. He's saying, no, bad Robin, no kill, no kill. But yeah, I mean, I think the big question is how established is the Bat family? Are we saying I have to assume the other Robins happen. This is just Bat family's established, and the question: do we get 3 Robins and a Batgirl? And is that Batgirl potentially the Batgirl that got the Axe movie, and James Gunn's going to throw her a bone and bring her back?
Honestly, I could see this where there's Bruce's Batman, Damian's Robin, Dick Grayson's Nightwing. Maybe Jason Todd is just still dead or is out and about as Red Hood.
Sure.
Tim Drake is kind of because if he's not Robin, it'd be kind of confusing for general audiences to have him as Red Robin and Dick Great and Damian as Robin. Maybe Tim Drake will have his own unique superhero identity. Tim Drake is kind of the unknown element. I could see Barbara being Oracle, maybe. I don't know how many Bat family members, but I could see like a specific role for each one. Like Cassie could be spoiler. Maybe Stefan. Maybe no, sorry, Cat. Maybe Stephanie could be spoiler, and Cassandra Cain could be Batgirl. But in light of the fact that it's James Gunn, what is the chances of seeing Batman and Zur-En-Arr somewhere down the line?
If we get Batman, it's absolutely possible. But I mean, overall though, I like the idea of just Batman, kind of like kind of in that kind of fatherly position, a way we haven't seen before, and we're finally doing the Bat family on screen. This is gonna be a first. This is gonna be a big one that we've jumped to an established Batman in live action with all the trimmings potentially.
Do you think Ra's al Ghul will be the bad guy in that movie?
Well, if Damien's involved, we have to have a scene where it's going to be him dealing with him dealing with like the two influences in his life, which is Batman and Ra's al Ghul. And,
with Talia in the picture,
I'd have to assume so. I mean, if your story, as James Gunn's kind of described here, if it seems like it's going to be the foundation of Batman basically training him to be Robin, essentially, or at the very least still get acclimated to whole how can he curb this kid's murderous tendencies, which are so opposite to his own. It's got to be something.
So
you're going to have the trimmings.
So who would your guys' fan casting be for Talia?
Well, I don't know if we want to get into all that. Yeah, I don't know. Not Marion Cotillard, not this time.
I have fan casting for Batman, like this specific fatherly version of Batman.
Is it John Hamm?
No.
Okay, who is it?
Bobby Cannavale.
Really?
Yeah. I don't see it. I see him more as Black Mass than anything.
Yeah, I mean, he'd be great as Black Mass, actually.
Actually, so I was talking with.
I'm just thinking specifically of like the dad angle. I don't know.
Actually, here's the thing. My pick, and this would be an actor from the DCU that would port over to play Batman, Chris Pine. Chris Pine, if you just dye his hair black, he's a spitting image of comic book Bruce Wayne. He's about the age to where he could be like a dad. And I think he could play up like a lighter, more, softer Bruce who was trying to curb his son to just not be a murderous asshole.
Well, who years ago wanted to play Damian Wayne. And I mean, I don't know if he's too old for it now because I mean, he's still kind of relatively young, but I think he's aged out of it. But you know who wanted to play Damian Wayne?
Was it Aidan Gallagher for Umbrella Academy?
Well, no, but I mean that's good. But no, I was going to say David Mazouz, the actor who plays young Bruce Wayne.
Oh God!
Seriously,
that'd be too much of a. That'd be too weird.
Yeah,
that's think about it though. T. The way he played Bruce, you could see him playing.
I could see him doing it. It'd just be too weird from like a marketing brand point of view.
For Damien, they'll do like a Miss Marvel and just like have cast a white net and just find like a very young, potentially brown or maybe could pass up as Turkish actor, and then he can just blow up as Robin.
Super Billy's casting is Richard Armitage.
Yeah, I feel like Armitage is too old at this point. Honestly, Jake Gyllenhaal would be interesting as a Batman.
He actually wouldn't be bad, honestly.
Although I think it's time to move on to Booster Gold.
Yeah.
Hold on. I just have one more thing.
Right.
My whole thing with this movie, and Super Billy made a comment about it like right when we first started, and I kind of very much agree with him, is that essentially, like, I really hope that this movie is essentially a Bat family movie.
No, that like James Gunn says specifically, you'll see other members of the Bat family show
Yeah,
up.
so that excites me. Like that, I would say out of everything that was announced today, this was my favorite announcement. Even though, it's more Batman stuff, sure, but. And I also really like the fact that, like, I feel like this is a really good kind of, like, counterpoint to the Robert Pattinson Batman.
Exactly. The beginnings and then the end point. Yeah.
Right.
That's what I'm saying. I mean, Tiki, are you rooting for, like, the blue cape on a Batman to really visually
I would like to see it. Yeah, sure.
Yeah, blue cape and yellow oval symbol.
That's what I'm saying. I'm saying we go to full,
and also have the white irises.
Yeah. Well, that'd be I love that. They go crazy for that.
All right.
Okay, so
but yes, let's move on to what I think is the most James Gunn-esque thing on the lineup, which is Booster Gold.
Did you know anything about Booster Gold?
I've heard the name. I've definitely heard the name before. I didn't know the premise, but I'm just gonna throw this out there. I'm gonna be genuinely surprised if this doesn't end up being Chris Pratt.
I
I don't think Chris Pratt will show up in any of these projects.
Okay, so Booster Gold is very, very much in. I think they could be the Peter Quill of DC potentially.
I'd say more to bring him back into this. I'd say more Will Poulter being him.
Honestly, for me, I'm thinking like a more popular. I think like Glenn Powell could definitely play the hell out of Booster Gold.
We need somebody who can like play up a massive ego.
No, that like, have you seen Top Gun Maverick? Like he as Hangman.
Oh, I could see that. Yeah. I keep forgetting that guy's name.
Yeah,
that guy to me is basically like Josh Holloway 2, the sequel. Josh Holloway 2, Electric Boogaloo.
Oh man, I love Josh Holloway's story.
But see, right? Isn't that guy like exactly like Josh Holloway's kind of like vibe?
I think Miles, if bringing in Top Gun, I think Miles Teller would also be a good pick.
Yeah,
I don't. Not for Booster Gold. I'd like to see Miles Teller somewhere. He's a good actor.
I think you just give him some range.
Look, he's got range, but I don't know if he's necessarily like, I don't know if funny guys like really like.
Yeah, he just doesn't have the kind of bravado. His roles are more
has
kind
to
of
be some level of likability, and Miles Teller's not like an actor I hate. He's a good actor, but like his characters don't give up like. Booster Gold has to be a douchebag, but a lovable douchebag.
Right.
And Miles Teller doesn't have that kind of like Glenn Powell.
I feel like Miles Teller either plays like someone who's despicable or someone who just like you just feel sorry for.
Pathetic, yeah, as a pathetic,
Right.
Yeah, Booster Gold. They're doing a series on this character, by the way, just to make sure it's they're doing a show as him. There's a lot of love for this character and a lot of potential with Booster Gold, and he does seem up James Gunn's alley because there's a lot of Peter Quill in this character potential.
So as like a minor fan cast pick, like if y'all ever if do any of you three have Apple TV?
Yeah.
Okay, watch the show Acapulco, and there is an actor on that show. His name is Chord Overstreet. He plays a character named Chad, and he is based on his performance. He would be like a god tier pick for Booster Gold. Like he plays just the most he's like a doofus who's like lived on money, but he has like a level of like lovable charm that I think would be a hit for Booster Gold.
What's his name again?
The actor, it's Chord Overstreet. It's like he was on Glee. But he's if you watch Acapulco, he's great in it, and I think he has the kind of energy that I would want to see in Booster Gold.
Now, here's a question: we have we're gonna have Blue Beetle established. Do you think we're gonna make him pals with the Jaime Reyes Blue Beetle, or you can go as far as Ted?
That's actually mostly what I know Booster Gold from is his interactions with Blue Beetle.
So interestingly, we definitely getting the Blue Beetle movie, so he is on the table.
Considered they were like almost like for a while the main duo from Justice League of America.
Well, Justice League International.
International, right?
Yeah. But that's the thing. So here's a question, though. Do we go with the Youngblood and Jaime Reyes, or do we go – I think they're casting Jason Sudeikis as Ted Cord. But
no, they're not So what was that just said? I think there was just something about like a casting grid.
Yeah.
And mentioned about like, looking for like a Jason Sudeikis type. And then people kind of went like – it just kind of over time through the mill. It's like, they're going to get Jason now. So
that's a shame because Jason Sudeikis would have been really good as Ted Cord.
He's a little too old at this point.
Well, that's the thing is he's the older Blue Beetle. It's a passing of the torch story. He doesn't even need to be in. It's like Ant-Man.
It would be very interesting if maybe Booster Gold comes like in the show. He like maybe like Blue Beetle is like this obscure superhero that is like not mentioned much in history. Mm-hmm. And like the last point, like where it ends off for him in the history records, it's implied that he dies, but actually like Booster Gold like accidentally saves it, like takes him away from his time and go on adventures in the show.
Cool. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So honestly, so honestly, the only time I really haven't liked Booster Gold was I hated what they did with him in Tom King's Batman run. Booster Gold shows up for like this 2-issue story arc, and he's just terrible. So as long as they don't do the Tom King Booster Gold, I think we're going to be fine.
Hmm.
So also with the God parallel with these, by the way, so we kind of dripped off of that real quick. So let's quickly summarize. Brave the Bullet feels like Damien's going to be kind of the monster in that, and then Booster Gold feels like he's going to be kind of like a false god. And he's like Icarus flying on fake wings, you know.
I mean, considering he's like someone who comes back from the future, where he's basically an average Joe to become this superhero, is like, I can totally see.
I will say, out of all the stuff that I'm really like not that familiar with, like I said, I mostly know this dude as like a name, like Booster Gold and Blue Beetle. Like the premise itself does very much kind of like draw me in for sure. It does sound like something that I would naturally be inclined to watch.
Yeah. All right. So then that brings us to Supergirl, Woman of Tomorrow.
And this is maybe the thing that I don't know.
And speaking of Tom King.
Yeah.
I want to be excited for it. I don't know a lot about the actual comic book. I just like my only concern is the CW factor.
Well, here's the thing. So I too, Tiki, I hear every time I go to a con and I'm in Tom King's line, everyone's always talking about how great the Supergirl comic is. And I've not read it myself. I hear good things. From what I understand, the premise of this, which sounds like they're doing a direct adaptation of the story, at the very least, a very heavily inspired adaptation of the story. Where essentially, if I have it right, Supergirl's in space and she's helping this girl avenge or get justice from the guy who killed her father. And it seems to me that we're going to circumvent the CW thing. It feels like we're going to avoid retelling the origin for a movie, because if you look at the Supergirl show, Supergirl's origin is economized into the opening of that show. Like, I'm Superman's cousin, but he landed here first. That's all you need to know. Right. Yeah. We can summarize in less than a minute. We just need just open the movie with it, and then we're good.
Well,
just open in like 2 minutes.
And not only that, but also like James Gunn specifically said that like for this version of Supergirl in the DCU, like there's like he made a point that Superman, he came to Earth as a baby, got raised by two loving parents in the heartland of Kansas, whereas Supergirl, she grew up in like the remnants of Krypton for up to 14 years of her life, and then was tasked to just leave her home behind, all the people she loved, to go protect her cousin on Earth. And then by the time she got there, Superman's already established, and he's basically the protector, or the person tasked to take care of Supergirl. And basically, James Gunn's whole point for the movie is that, like, okay, what is Supergirl's purpose? Like,
exactly, which is a great idea.
Yeah, and like she's more jaded and cynical. Maybe that's the starting point, and through her helping out this girl event, maybe she grow. Maybe she in the arc of the movie, she becomes the more hopeful. Maybe not fully hopeful, but more, has something, has a more positive outlook of the universe.
Yeah, she gets to be a beacon of hope in her own right, versus just like she's in Superman's shadow and she gets to kind of carve her own niche, or at least do something that kind of like puts it in perspective for her, quite possibly.
And with it being a movie and it's a high budget, like her and the girl can just travel around to different planets and just it'll be visually interesting to see.
Yeah. Okay, and then the last bit of movie, movie news that was announced. Swamp Thing.
Swamp Thing.
It's a Swamp Thing.
Swamp Thing. You had to change the better to have an A in it. Swamp Thing.
It's a Swamp Thing. It's gonna be a song that's gonna top the charts the year it comes out, I assure you.
It's a Swamp Thing.
Okay, anyway, no, seriously. So Swamp Thing. This so here's the thing. So Swamp Thing, I don't know if you guys Rohith, did you ever see the Swamp Thing TV show?
No.
Yeah, the show was good. And the thing I hope this movie does, the movie, from what I understand, they didn't say this explicitly in the announcement, but I'm getting the impression that it sounded like James Gunn says did you hear James Gunn say we're gonna do the origin here? Because I thought
I think it's gonna be horror based, and we're gonna see like, I guess, the origins of like the monster that is Swamp Thing. It might not be like a direct origin story. It could just be like, Swamp Thing is established.
They might allude to the origin, but not.
That's what I'm saying. I'm hoping we go just like lightly touching on the origin, because we had a whole show that was dedicated to, okay, we're seeing the origin of Swamp Thing, him coming to grips with, oh God, I'm not Alex Holland anymore. Where some of the best Swamp Thing stories are just like, what does a guy do after he's had that processing? Was it like basically, yeah.
The thing is that for Swamp Thing, in contrast to say like the Man Thing, it's a lot of thing. And so for Marvel's Man Thing, Ted Salads, specifically just Ted Salads, has been changed into a swamp creature called Man Thing. For Swamp Thing in Alan Moore's run, the twist in that run is that Swamp Thing realizes he's not actually Alec Holland transformed to a swamp creature. He's just a swamp creature that, like, with a psychic energies and radiation, becomes like an entire being that has the memories of Alec Holland, but isn't Alec Holland.
I know, which is but that's one of the best things Alan Moore ever did. Honestly, that idea is so heady and cool.
Yeah, and I think like I would love. Have you guys seen the movie Annihilation?
I have.
Okay, imagine a Swamp Thing movie like that.
Yeah, that would be pretty hardcore.
Well, you got to admit, Tiki, you're intrigued by the Swamp Thing movie, aren't you?
Oh, definitely, most certainly. This is definitely in my top 3 of stuff that catches my interest.
What will make the movie different from the show is that it won't be just a straight up like R-rated horror movie, creature from the swamp. If it embraces the more psychedelic, elements from like Alan Moore's run, like maybe like have like a seance.
What do you think of Alex Garland actually directing? Possibly,
I would. That would get I would be there. I would, especially with the score like that. Man.
Although I will say I did not care for Men all that much, honestly.
I hadn't seen Men.
I love Dex
Marcus. Oh man, Rohit! If you're a fan of Garland's first 2 movies, Men is like let's say the first 2 are like at an 8, Men is at like a 12. Anyways,
but the thing, so I do get a vibe. I mean, that we're going to go the Alan Moore route, because if you're going to have like a stab, especially with James Gunn, like someone involved there, if you're going to take a stab at Swamp Thing, we got to do the Alan Moore story, like full. We got to do that. So I'm hoping that personally, and I know this is we kind of say this with everything, but you know what? Ultimately, I would love it if we just did Swamp Thing, which with the Alan Moore context, ultimately it's kind of like Shape of Water. If we got Guillermo del Toro, to do kind of a Shape of Water with Swamp
Dragon, I just don't want Guillermo del Toro. Like I still have PTSD over the whole Haunted Mansion thing. I don't want Guillermo del Toro to get attached to something and for me to be excited only for it to not work out. I swear to God.
It's a nice dream though, isn't it?
Guillermo del Toro doesn't do Swamp Thing. I put in Michael Giacchino into the director's chair.
Yeah.
That seems like it's almost too ezy, right?
Maybe Sam Raimi, could do.
Raimi would be solid. Raimi would be a solid choice.
Yeah. I just hope that for Swamp Thing movie they embraced it. Like Alan Moore gets really trippy, and I feel like because it's like Alan Moore's run and then Scott Snyder's run. And Scott Snyder's run seems to be more the horror element. And I feel like Swamp Thing, to really stand out beyond just being like a typical like R-rated horror movie, we kind of need to go with the more psychedelic, like surrealism that was in Moore's run.
There is one thing with this Swamp Thing that I do want them to do from the TV show, if at all possible. Which I don't think it is, but I really want them to do it. I want the suit to be practical.
Ooh, yeah.
Because that's the
at
TV
least
show.
Practical shots. At least get some practical shots.
I mean, yeah. At the very least, I want to see Swamp Thing emote. That's the thing. Either that, or better yet, let's even if we don't get Del Toro on this, how amazing would it be if we had a Swamp Thing puppet, man?
Honestly, you get one of those. You get one of the trauma directors to direct Swamp Thing at like a low budget,
like Toxic Avenger.
Aren't you worried about at that point, though, if you get one of the trauma guys to direct it?
Dragon, there's already a trauma person involved in this.
I know that. I meant not. I know that. I meant like the other guys that are not James Gunn. How well do we know the cinematography of the other trauma guys, like in a movie that is not Toxic, the Toxic guy?
And considering the original Swamp Thing movie was directed by Wes Craven, it'd be kind of traditional to bring in a horror director.
That's the thing. You want a horror director.
No, you could get Leigh Whannell, Mike Flanagan, Ari Aster, Jennifer Kent, maybe James Wan.
Ari Aster, just looking at something I saw of him briefly, I think he has a psychedelic style that could actually work with.
I would not want Ari Aster attached to DC stuff, though.
Is it just because
I think Ari Aster's too much of an auteur. I think he's got his own like original vision going on.
But then again, James Gunn, though, don't you
I do think
he
Flanagan would be a really good choice, though, because Flanagan, he actually like really thrives in adaptation.
Mm-hmm. Or like even beyond, like maybe like whoever did Barbarian or like you know, like basically any like
Ty West.
Yeah, any just really horror director that's that's gone stuff through Blumhouse or Atomic Monster, you know.
Barbarian was done by someone named Zach Krager.
Zach Krager, yeah.
Yeah, Super Billy says CG enhanced Swamp Thing suit or animatronic. And man, an animatronic of Swamp Thing would be the most amazing thing ever. It'd be awesome. God, I'd love that. Plus, you can do a thing where like the swamp comes apart and then you reveal the skeleton or the remnants inside.
What do you considering John?
Yeah, I could see Ty West.
Considering John Constantine showed up in Swamp Thing in the comics, what if he shows up in the Swamp Thing movie?
That is possible because they are buddies. Well, not buddies, but you know they do know each other.
You know.
I wonder if we could also set up Poison Ivy.
I mean, It's possible, is given that Swamp Thing and Poison Ivy, they've had run-ins at least. Usually the Floronic Man, but
considering the Grant Morrison influence, like in Scott Snyder's run, there's the idea of the green, which is kind of like the force or this ethereal thing that connects all plant life. Well, there's the thing called the red, which connects all animal life, and like Animal Man is involved with that. So maybe Swamp Thing could set up like the green and the red, and we have an Animal Man movie that's inspired.
Gunn would love to do an Animal Man movie and the other half of the stuff they're going to announce.
Imagine James Gunn showed up as instead of Grant Morrison showing up in the comics run, you have you have James Gunn or the director of the movie showing up in the Animal Man movie.
Well, he did show up in the Harley Quinn animated show, so it is possible.
All right.
Yeah.
Should we move on to Spec then?
Yeah, I think so, yes. Right, so
Brandon Cronenberg. Okay, Super Billy, here's the thing with Brandon Cronenberg. Like, I am a horror guy, and even I am intimidated to see that movie. All right? Like, I have heard things about Infinity Pool. All right, speculation. Guys, I don't really have much. This is probably gonna, Jacob, I don't know how much you have. I'm guessing this is gonna be the Dragon and Rohith hour.
Well, do you have anything?
I mean, I don't really have much speculation other than what I've already talked about. I mean,
for me, it's like all of this is, I'm trying. It's a lot of information to just kind of juggle without trying to think of what's potentially coming up next. So the only thing I'll throw out is, Dragon, I'd love to see a Batman Beyond film. I know you would too at some point. Freaking Stephen Yeun as Terry McGinnis. Make it happen.
Yeah.
Even Stephen Wen is too old for Terry McGinnis.
You're not entirely wrong. I know.
How old is Stephen Yeun right now anyway?
Well, maybe
Stephen Yeun in when he was in the prime of his Walking Dead career would have been perfect as Terry McGinnis.
Who knows? Maybe that's where you bring in Timothy Chalamet.
Well,
no.
Don't say no. Why not?
In all fairness,
I'm sorry, Jacob. Literally, my reaction to Timothy Chalamet is that was exactly what Super Billy was joking about with some people in Superman. I'm like, no. Terry McGinnis, no, not him, not that character.
I'm going to throw
Terry McGinnis is too cool for Timothy Chalamet.
One fan I've seen that actually might be decent-ish was Tanner Buchanan as Terry McGinnis, the actor who plays Robbie on Cobra Kai.
Oh,
It's actually not bad.
Interesting pool. Yeah, I can see that.
I mean, I had a different. I was going to suggest. So I don't know. I think that's actually better than the idea I was going to suggest. Tiki.
What about just to go with? Because I don't know. For some reason, I really like the idea of an Asian Terry McGinnis. What about a Ross Butler?
I don't know if Ross Butler has it in him. Maybe it's
Ross
Nelson.
Butler pretty much just has one mode.
No, I mean, I think Ross Butler I could see was Nelson Nash, maybe. But,
right. Yeah, fair enough.
No. Think about this. What about Dylan Minnette? This term. You think there's any range there? You think he could pull it off?
Minnette. Yeah, I could see it. I could. I don't know. I don't know why I'm hung up on like I want to see an Asian Terry McGinnis. Maybe it's just for the rep. Maybe I just the representation would be cool.
People's perceptions that like Terry McGinnis is Asian or Asian looking because like we've seen Asian characters. This is just a minor.
Well, he's dating Dana in the show, and the fact that Gotham in the future has kind of like an Asian, has like a Tokyo influence on it. So there's a little bit of that.
I guess, but I mean. I've seen other Asian characters in DCAU and the way like it's a minor point, but in terms of the speculation for Gods and Monsters, I think for the second part, films or TV shows I can imagine, Etrick and the Demon.
Yeah, I know. It's gonna be my first suggestion. Yeah, yes.
Dead Man.
Wait, what do you say?
Dead Man?
Yeah.
No, the first one.
Etrick and the Demon.
Okay, you see, I have no idea what that is, and it got such a big pop from Dragon.
Yeah, you remember it. You remember
the yellow spiky demon. Do you remember Child's Play, the episode where the Justice League become kids?
Yes, kind of.
The baby, the little. Even beyond that, remember the new Batman Adventures, Clarion the Witch Boy.
All right. God, all this Batman stuff is kind of starting to blend together as far as the Justice League goes.
Yeah, but
all right.
Yeah, but Etrick and the Demon, Dead Man, maybe New Gods. Because
this circles back to what Sir Billy was saying earlier. I think Sir Billy and I are somewhat on the same page that we should do New Gods, but I think we gotta give it a lot of space from what we did with Snyder. I don't know. I think we gotta wait till another phase like that. But then again, this is like the Gods and Monsters thing, so I don't know.
Yeah, maybe a Captain Atom movie because like basically, if you really think about it, because fun fact, like Captain Atom was like the template for Dr. Manhattan, so maybe a Captain Atom movie that like embraces with the metaphysical would be interesting.
I think Captain Atom's more of a TV show guy than a movie guy.
I mean,
I think the Peacemaker is the basis for the comedian. He got a show, so why not give
Captain Atom but I don't know if you could accomplish Captain Atom's like power set in the TV show versus a movie.
Right. Okay. Well, so the other one, as I said earlier, I could see Lobo show. Honestly, when I was thinking Lanterns was set more in space, I was going to suggest Lobo, but then given the Earth setting, maybe not so much. But again, if not Superman, Lobo could get his own thing though, because there's a lot of talk about Lobo, and Lobo is very much up Gunn's alley. Could happen.
Did you guys hear? I heard a rumor that I don't think this is going to be the case anymore. I think he's just going to stick around as Aquaman. But I heard a rumor that if they weren't going to continue with Momoa as Aquaman, that he could be recast as Lobo.
So I saw from the for when Safran talked about Jason Momoa, if he's playing two characters or not. It seems to me it's like after Aquaman 2, Jason Momoa is going to only play one character. He's not going to play. He's going to have to play Lobo or Aquaman, and one of the two. So whichever character Jason Momoa shows up as in the DCU post Aquaman 2, the other character is going to be played by some other actor. So it's kind of a wait and see.
Sorry.
All right, Super Billy has in the comments, Dragon. I hope this isn't a spoiler.
It probably is for
anyone.
I know. I think that's a funny idea.
All right, yeah. So
Ryan Hurst is Lobo. That's
actually
solid.
Would be my. I would go Ryan
Hurst. Fun fact: he voiced him in the Superman Man of Tomorrow. Anyway,
yeah, he did. Yeah, he did.
Kind of thing. This is kind of pulling out of nowhere, but I like to see Kingdom Come made
as an Elseworlds thing.
Yeah,
most likely. Yeah.
Would you want that as an animated movie or live action?
I feel like live action because I can't imagine an anime movie really replicating Alexis Ross's style.
That is a good point.
Yeah. I'll say for just going on the Gods and Monsters thing, maybe the Spectre. He is God's vengeance or God's wrath.
Okay, so here's a question. So the terrifying mystery that they're hyping up in Green Lantern. So again, you suggested the Blackest Night thing, which is probably a smart play, but do you think we might be alluding to Crisis?
I mean, in Crisis of Infinite Earths, I think there was a point. I think either the Monitor or the Anti-Monitor makes this point in Crisis of Infinite Earths is that Earth is like uniquely in the center of the universe, and so like when Earths are colliding or breaking apart, that means the rest of the universe. That's why there's like Earth 1, 2, and 3. That's kind of the in universe explanation for why Earth is so the center of everything. Maybe that's the ancient mystery, but it could be that. It could also be like maybe I guess you don't want to do new god stuff. I'm just trying to think what other stuff could be. Like it has to be like a cosmological horror thing, but
Thank you. I know this would never happen, but considering the history he has, but I'd like to see Spawn. I mean, I know he's not DC, but I would still love to.
I think we gotta get that Spawn movie off the ground before we get that, Jacob. But yeah,
I know, but I'm saying, how cool would it be though?
maybe maybe like a Hawkman Hawkgirl thing, because like a gods we can tie into like maybe when Thanagarian showed up in ancient Egypt, they were thought of as gods, stuff like that.
I mean, okay, I think just to maybe round things out, but here's like we have each each chapter is probably gonna have like a different theme applied to it. So I don't think we're gonna get anything like the Question or more Batman related stuff until likely kind of like chapter 2, or we're gonna assign a different theme to things. That sound about right?
I think that's a fair claim to make.
Okay. Right. I mean, I think again, there's a lot we could speculate on. I think we've covered a lot of ground here, don't you?
Yeah, we're at like an hour 35, so we're the length of an animated film.
Yeah. All right, so let's thank the folks that tuned in here.
Yeah, so Super Billy just on fire with the comments here. Sorry I couldn't get to all of them, man. You just you're kind of outpacing me. And then also Koski briefly popped in. Brief cameo appearance from Koski. All right. Okay, well, thanks to all of you for tuning in, and see y'all later. Have a good one.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.